Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Enterprise Dish. It is my man up in Columbus, Dealmaker Rick, who's always bringing the knowledge, making, I don't know, well, nobody will understand that joke other than Rick and I, but that's okay. That's why it's a podcast. It's Rick and I talking. Rick, how is it raining in Columbus? Because it's raining in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's a very ugly day out today. It's wet. It's not cold. Okay, so I'll take that. But yeah, it's a good day to be indoors.
Yeah, it is 67 freedom units, which is about 25
Yeah,
centigrades.
it's 22.
Somewhere around
22.
there, something like that. So not cold, just wet and rainy. But Rick, there's a lot going on. So we are here at the very end of April, but in May, at least from the Microsoft side, May 25th through the 27th will be the company's annual Build conference. It's totally free online. Anything. Well, I don't know if you're an MVP now, so you might have advanced knowledge that you can or cannot talk about.
Cannot, but I have been attending a lot of the MVP calls because they've been really trying to work up to this. So I'll be honest with you, Brad. I'm always blown away by the amount of cadence content innovations that Microsoft will continue to bring. And I think what's actually kind of gravitating out a little bit is that Build is going to be kind of taking some things that I think Ignite used to give to the market. So the Build is wide open for everyone. So for those that are really looking for that super technical stuff and, kind of to the point, and you don't necessarily have to be a developer, you can build solutions, right? So, if you are used to what Ignite would bring you, this might be an additional way to consume it. So yeah, check that out for sure.
Speaking of, because this dovetails nicely, Microsoft also launched a new learning Kubernetes on Azure for free. If you go to aka.ms/aks/sandbox, you can create new Azure Kubernetes services and clusters up in a sandbox. You can just learn, you can play around and have yourselves a good time. And really, you can learn about deploying ML models in AKS and all sorts of fun stuff. And it's completely free. And so Microsoft's got a bunch of that good stuff over there.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is VeeamOn, but after VeeamOn, I'm going to take a AKS learning journey.
Oh.
So, yeah. So now let me give you kind of some perspective there. What I do here at Veeam, we acquired a company that does Kubernetes native backup. Actually, you got a rule. Every time you say Kubernetes, you got to drink.
It's 10:15 in the morning. I have nothing with me, but
anyways, we acquired a company which functions in that space, and I'm going to take a personal learning journey for AKS after VeeamOn. But one interesting stat I found out that KubeCon, which goes on next week-ish or so, which aligns to that cloud native apps, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, 80+% of the attendees there are just getting started.
Really?
Just on a learning journey. Yeah. So we've been hearing all about these containers, these technologies for a long time. It's a big deal. So, for those IT pros that are container schmainer, it might be a good time to take it a little bit seriously, or more specifically, come out with at least an educated opinion on one platform or something. So, I'll drop a little nug here. There is actually a pretty cool open source tool that Kasten, which is the acquisition that Veeam made, there's a really cool open source tool that'll assess the storage of the Kubernetes deployment. So it's called Kubester, and Kubester will basically do a storage profile to make sure that your app is going to perform at the levels you want, which that's kind of a big deal, right? Because the whole nature of these services, you want to deploy it, you want it to run, and you want to do what it needs to do and potentially scale back and go away. But the underlying infrastructure is a factor, right? The whole abstraction layer is a great benefit, but you need to be aware of how the storage will do. And my commitment to you, Brad, is that my very first AKS learning journey post, when we go on the site, will be around using this open source tool to assess the storage performance in AKS. So there you go.
Fantastic. dovetailing nicely. I kind of jumped around here in the show notes just a bit. Nobody else would know that, but again, Rick or I.
We
Microsoft
prepare. That's the takeaway.
Microsoft also announced it acquired Kinvolk, the creator and distributor of Flatcar Linux, or Flatcar Container Linux, as well as the Locomotive Inspector Gadget project. The point being here is there's a lot, to Rick's point exactly, there's a lot of container news going on, a lot of action in containers. Microsoft is investing not only in education in containers, but now they're buying additional container-based companies. And so you got to start figuring out these flavors, because that doesn't feel like it's a flash in the pan sort of thing.
No, it's not. And my practical advice, one of the things I've done with one of my members of my team is I had Michael Cade go on special assignment into this community, basically completely parachute in. And he's done a great job of documenting his learning journey. And he summarized something really intriguing to me. He's like, every one of the platforms have some things that are similar, but then some things that are very unique and different to them. So whether you're on the AKS boat, or EKS over in Amazon, or GKE over in Google Cloud, or the on-prem things like OpenShift, Tanzu, and the like, right? It's all 5 of those behave very differently. So my personal recommendation is to, pick one of these platforms. I'm going to go down the AKS bit. What we do here at Veeam, I'm going to need somebody that sits in each of those. But for me, I'm going to go down AKS. But my recommendation is, as people go on their journey, pick one of these platforms and learn that.
Sure.
And then other things like backup and storage management, those other things should come easy once you learn the platform. And that's kind of our approach to it. So it's funny, Michael said that learning these container platforms has been the hard part. Backing them up with, with what we're doing in that space is the easy part. And if you look at Flatcar and these other projects, Inspector Gadget, I love these names that align to these acquisitions from Kinvolk. I think that's how you say that, but I'm not familiar with those technologies. But this is very clearly rounding out things that are going to drive AKS capabilities, right? That's the game here. So learn AKS, check out these other new things, and watch how they get folded into the platform, right? So it's a learning journey, and there's a lot of people there to help you, and there's plenty of tools, and Azure isn't doing anything to make it hard for those to get started in this space.
Yep. Other journeys that are coming up here, as we kind of alluded to, VeeamOn is happening also at the end of May, 25th through the 26th. And Rick, I'm spitballing here, but I suspect you might know a thing or two about VeeamOn.
Yeah, this is the one thing I just can't shake from my day-to-day. I guess, it's kind of funny. I got a VeeamOn, maybe on this side, I got a VeeamOn banner here. I got one over there. I got VeeamOn Las Vegas up there, actually straight above my shiny head, so I've got all this VeeamOn museum here that I curate, but we have a big one coming up, and I just got the registration report today. I actually think we're going to pull it off. It's crazy. We're gonna hit our goals, but couple of funny story, Brad. You're never going to believe this. So I got summoned for jury duty the day of VeeamOn.
Nice.
And actually, a really busy day at work is not a suitable excuse.
No,
I'm
it's
serious.
really not.
It's not. It's not a suitable excuse to get out of it. Now, I could say I'm going to be blogging and talking to the press and all that. That might get me out of it. But long story, it should be fine because my elements are all recorded, and it's only one of the days. So I should be okay.
So I do know, well, I guess it depends. I think you can punt that to get tossed back in for like 4 weeks or something. Because I got
like push it out, like delay it or something.
Yeah, but it's a real short window. Like if that's,
I'd rather just peel the Band-Aid and get it over with. And the other thing is they this, at least in my county for nowadays with current conditions, what they're doing is the day before you log in and see if you're needed.
Yeah. And
then in the way it's structured, I want to say it's a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Tuesday and a Thursday stacked on 2 different weeks. And so the conflicting day is it's one of the days, it's like on the second half, right? So I might not even need to. I don't know. We'll see. I did jury duty like 20 some years ago, and it was actually really cool and really fun. I enjoyed it. It took the whole week, though, every day. This one, it's weird that it's a single day, so it might be easier. We'll see. But, it's funny. If I was supposed to be out of town, so if it was a real VeeamOn, we would actually I probably have a better case.
You
But
probably would. I think you can send
yeah,
like your flight numbers or something like that if
yeah,
you can show it's pre-booked or something like that.
yeah. But no, I should, because it's recorded. Yeah, I'll try to pull it off. So,
Well,
but we've got a lot of stuff coming for it. That's for sure. I'll
yeah.
give one little preview. Let's see well, we're gonna have demos of all the products. That's one. We actually, and what I mean by that, and this is something we've learned about virtual events. Demos work better on virtual events because, like,
Hmm.
in a giant room, and even with my wonderful Zoom it skills, like the screen, consuming what we're
Yep.
showing and saying is harder. But like here to there on digital events, it actually works a little bit better. So at any given point in the agenda, there's a demo only track. So that's a good way to get started with new stuff. The other little nug I'll drop is a special workshop that
Hmm.
our newest capability, CDP, continuous data protection. We're going to do a 75-minute session, how to
75.
configure it, 75, end to end. And the thought is it's more instructional, and one of our best trainers is going to deliver that content, because this particular thing, this CDP, is really only used for the most critical applications. So anytime people want to go deploy it, they have to give a lot of considerations, like, okay, this can affect my tier 1 application. So we want to really walk the people through it, and that workshop will really help out. So we're excited for that. And it's free. Just go to VeeamOn.com. You can sign up today.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of things you can sign up for, is if you have questions for Rick, this is a great place to ask them. Actually, Rick, we got one into the bucket. Actually, there was a couple, but this is the one that I pulled up. It says, comes from an anonymous user who did not want to be referenced on the podcast. They said, it is looking like we will be migrating off of server 2012 R2 early next year. Does Rick have any advice on how to prep for this upgrade? We are likely moving to 2019, I believe.
Yeah, I had this conversation in the 2008 R2 end of life era. And, it sounds crazy, but what I do, first of all, is get domain controllers and stuff updated first, your core infrastructure bit, then work into the app services type stuff, or app servers. Maybe I'm the only one that says this, but just throwing the CD in and or the ISO in and saying upgrade, that actually works pretty good.
All right, they're heard it here first.
I've done that. I took a number of times. I took a 2008 R2, went to 2012, and then went to 2016. I haven't done it all the way up to 2019, but that actually works pretty good. So if you have a good backup, which I recommend, that's always a good idea. It gives you the flexibility to do these types of things if you can have confidence in the recovery. So I wrote a white paper on doing this type of thing in what we call a data lab here at Veeam. So it's taking the backup you have, simulating the upgrade, and verifying that it's okay. And if that's good, then you can back that up and restore it or repeat the process. So, I've been there and done that with 2008 around that time, and 2012 all the way up to 2016, but I'm sure the same logic works with 2019. So I would try that. The other thing is, rebuild, which is a lot more work, honestly, and more daunting, but trying those in-place upgrades, like I said, it was okay. Now, I highly recommend that's on a virtual platform. That's the one caveat. I don't like doing that type of logic on a physical platform, because then you're like, okay, I got a new OS, but I still got 5-year-old hardware, and that can walk you into some different problems, right? So recommend that on virtual platforms and having good backups in the way. So that's one approach. The other approach would be, honestly, just, reconfiguring apps and whatever is on these servers. And that sometimes is more attractive. And let me explain. Like, the in-place upgrades, like I said, work better than you think, right? And anybody who's gone through Microsoft certifications, those are the questions they ask. That's the Microsoft answer for Windows Server, but it's not necessarily frequently done in real life. But the other side of it is, it also can allow you, when you do those upgrades in place, that'll allow you to propagate bad decisions of the past. Okay, so if there's something you don't like about what this 2012 R2 system or any other obsolete system is doing, maybe the drive arrangement is funky. Maybe that's a really good one, right? So there's some storage designs of the past that are not good ideas for today. So if you do in-place upgrades, you're basically giving that bad decision a couple more years. So that's one thing that would warrant going to a rebuild and migration. So a couple of things here. I guess the last one is around like some of the clustered storage configs. Especially a lot of people deploy Windows servers on VMware platforms like vSphere. And when it comes to clustered virtual platforms, there was a time a number of years ago where people did the RDMs, the raw device mappings. Now in 2021, that's kind of like smoking. It's not a good idea to start doing that anymore. Yeah. So there's better technologies, better storage approaches. So if you have some of these archaic designs, I wouldn't propagate that. So that's in the whole rebuild camp. So short question, long answer. That's what
it's a big move. I mean, it's so scenario specific, right? If you're running a pretty vanilla operation, I'm sure just upgrading and just kind of taking the defaults might work for that organization. If you're Procter & Gamble and you're running a massive infrastructure, maybe not. So who knows?
Yeah. Or the other twist is, a lot of times I expect Microsoft will give extensions to the updates in Azure. Surprise. I would imagine, I don't think that's been announced, but I know they did for 2008.
Yeah.
I would, drive consumption to Azure that way. So something to watch there. That would be door number 3. Right?
Although you can't bet on door number 3, so you got to be, that one's more of a lifeboat than anything else.
Yeah, true. Well, what I have seen where that makes a lot of sense, and I spoke to a number of organizations that they had like an HR system or any other line of business app, and they moved to a SaaS offering, but they needed to hold on to that old thing for retention and inquiry reasons for a few years. That made sense to sit that in Azure, as was for ever after 3 more years or something like that. But like running the business from it with the obsolete OS, different story. So there's some, it depends. That's the answer.
It depends. Well, there's a mutual Twitter account that I don't know if you follow Wes. Do you follow Wes Miller on?
Yes.
Yeah. So every licensing question is always, it depends. So he's a good guy to follow if you're not familiar with him. But Rick, it has been another podcast. We covered containers. We covered, Kubernetes. We covered learning. We covered all sorts of VeeamOn, build.
Stuff.
A lot of stuff. And if you like more good stuff, everybody, there's links down in the description, including that Microsoft Learning stuff. There's VeeamOn. There's Rick on Twitter. I don't know, maybe there's some other mystery links down there, but we will catch all of you right back here next time. And thanks for hanging out with us.